again. This is Kay Byfield with this week's ArtSpeaks Studio Moment. Today we're going to talk about how artists show movement on a two-dimensional artwork. From earliest times, artists have wanted to show movement, but until the invention of moving pictures and sculptures that moved like mobiles and other kinds of artworks, there was no way that you could show movement. But they wanted to simulate movement on a two-dimensional surface. To do that, they developed three different ways that indicate to the viewer that movement is happening. There are three basic ways to show movement in a still picture: stop action, repetition, and blurring. Now I'm going to show you some examples of each in watercolor painting. When a representational object is suspended in a way that gravity would not allow, then the viewer knows that action is taking place. And here's a good example. In this image, we see the man and the woman moving through the crowd, and it's obvious that they must be moving because of the positions of their legs and because their bodies are tilted forward in the direction of movement. Here's another one. In this image, there is a snowball fight going on, and the snowballs are suspended in midair. And we know from that the snowballs couldn't be like that unless there was an exact snapshot of the action. In this painting called Hurricane Kids, we can see the children that are running from the storm through a window that is presumably covered with water. And so the action is conveyed both by the distortions from the window and from the positions of the children's bodies. Action is also often conveyed by a repetition of the form. So here we have a great example of someone walking a dog, and as we've all experienced with the dog gets tangled, the dog goes off in different directions, and the artist has used multiples to give that sense of trying to control a dog on a walk. That same kind of multiples are used with the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. In cartoons, it's a tried and true strategy for how to stop action. And in this case, the painting is much more abstract. The colors are very arbitrary, but you see a lot of repetitions of shapes which seem to indicate that there's movement and that it's boats caught in a storm, or at least that's the way I see it. The third way that artists convey action is by blurring the subject. They do that by blurring the part of the subject that is moving the fastest and then letting other parts of the subject be very clear. So this is a great example, and it shows some people riding horses really quickly. I would have guessed it was a horse race, but the title is polo. But I would have known that these were horses moving very, very quickly, and their legs are blurred, and there's a little suggestion of multiples as well. In this painting called The End of the Day, we see that there's a lot of blurring, and that makes it look like the cars are traveling down the road underneath the overpass. That conveys that there's a lot of movement. The last example of blurring that I'd like to show you is this image of a group of blackbirds, and some of them are airborne and others are down on a fountain, presumably getting a drink. And she successfully uses blurring and repetition in order to give a real sense that there is a lot of movement there. She's also using other strategies like letting her paint drip and very loose paint quality. Nothing in the natural world stays still very long, so it makes sense that artists would come up with ways to convey action on a two-dimensional surface. A lot of times they use several of these strategies in combination. This painting of a bar or a restaurant in New York City uses both blurring and the positioning of the figures to convey that there's a lot of action going on. As you can see, artists have found a number of ways to show action even though they're working on a two-dimensional surface. I hope that this information opens up opportunities for you as you plan your own paintings. And I also hope that we'll see you again very soon in our next ArtSpeaks studio moment. Bye.